Hi, everyone. Welcome to the May 7th edition of Horses to Watch. I'm David Aragona, and this week I'm going to take a look at three races from last weekend, two races from Oaklawn Park, and one from Gulfstream. We're going to begin last Friday at Oaklawn Park, and this was that Fantasy Day card. We're going to get to the fantasy in a little bit, but let's first start by taking a look at one of the undercard races. It was race 6, a maiden special weight going 6 furlongs, and I want to focus on a horse that had some experience, the number 10 Onaway. Let's break them from the gate, and you'll see that this horse, he's the favorite in the race, the number 10. He breaks just fine between horses. He's just not a horse that has a ton of early speed, and his rider, Javier Castellano, is trying to hustle him up into the race in the early going, kind of knowing that he's going to drop back a little bit. But he ends up, getting put back to the middle of the pack, and you see what happens right here is the leaders start to back down the pace a little bit, and this horse starts to get really ranked because he's now responding to that early encouragement a little bit later than he really needed to, and now he's running up into traffic. Javier Castellano has to tap on the brakes. Really not his fault. It's just in a congested field like this, you're going to run into some traffic trouble when your horse is moving at the wrong time, and he ends up getting shuffled back to second to last as they move around the far turn here. And once again, Javier is going to try to move this horse up a little bit to get some position coming to the quarter pole. But you see once again here, he just gets stuck in traffic behind horses. And as he comes back into the screen at the quarter pole, he's going to be at the back of the pack in those purple and yellow silks, almost last at this point, just getting shuffled all the way to the back of the pack. But once this horse finds a clear path in deep stretch, he actually starts to run again, and he's going to get up for fifth in this race, I think showing a little bit of ability towards the end. This is a horse who ran pretty well in his debut, closing to be fourth that day. He was off for a couple months after that. This was his first start since then, and he just didn't get to show what he can really do given the trip that he got this time. I think he'll run a lot better second time out. Who knows where a horse like this is going to show up later, because we'll see which tracks are racing. I imagine this could be one that Brad Cox might ship to Churchill Downs eventually. But if he runs in another maiden special weight of similar quality, I think he'll be tough to beat. Now let's move on to that aforementioned Fantasy. That was the feature race on this Friday card at Oaklawn Park. It was race 9, and I'm going to focus on a horse that finishes pretty far back and is pretty far back for much of the race. So because of that, we're going to look at the head-on of this entire race rather than pan shot. And let's break them from the gate. And the horse that I want to focus on is the number 11, Fire Coral. And she's breaking towards the outside of the gate here, 4 from the right. And she's going to move towards the back of the pack here. But watch what happens as they pass by the wire right here. She actually clips heels with a horse that's racing in front of her, and her rider, Tyler Bays, almost falls off of her. He actually loses the irons. Really quite a bit of athleticism for him to stay on the horse after trouble like that. And her race is just basically over at this point. But I do want to point out what she does late in this race, because you can see how far back she got because of that trouble coming around the far turn. As they move into the backstretch, watch, she's the last horse that enters your screen there, all the way at the back of the pack in those blue and yellow silks. She is a good 25 lengths off the pace here, and she's going to drop even farther back as they move down the backstretch because she's just losing interest, losing touch with the field. I think Tyler Bays knows at this point that the race is basically over for him, so he's barely motivating this horse as they move down the backstretch. And you see she drops a good 10 lengths, maybe a dozen lengths behind the second to last horse as they move into the far turn here. So she's just completely out of the race. But watch what she does in the stretch, because he's basically given up. But as the field moves into the lane here, he's going to finally start to ask her for a run. And it turns out she does have some run left in her, despite experiencing all of that adversity heading into the first turn. You see the two top finishers. They're way ahead of the rest of the field. And make no mistake, Fire Coral is going to get nowhere near them. But you see her again. She's the last horse entering the stretch there towards the inside. Tyler Bass is going to guide her all the way to the outside, off the rail, into a clear path. And it's a little bit hard to see, but she is flying by horses at the end of this race. And she's actually going to get from 14th all the way up to 5th at the end of this race, just barely losing out to 3rd place and quickly running by those horses past the wire. If you even watch all the way through the gallop out, she actually gallops out past the leaders in this race. Fire Coral is a horse that was lightly raced coming into this Fantasy. She had won 2 in a row. She's only made 3 starts in her career. And I think she showed some real ability in this race while never really threatening the top 2 finishers. But she's one that can continue to progress out of this race for Steve Asmussen. And I think we'll hear from her in some big stakes races later in the year. Let's finish up by moving to Gulfstream Park for the final race I'll discuss on this episode. And it's a race from Saturday. It's the 9th race on the card. It's the Honey Rider for the 3-year-old fillies on the turf, going a mile and a 16th. And I want to focus on the favorite in this race, the number 2 Highland Glory. Let's break them from the gate because you want to see that Highland Glory has a bit of trouble coming out of the stalls. She breaks about a length slowly here, and that's just going to cause issues for her because she's not a horse that really wants to come from that far back, but she's just going to get shuffled back, you see, as they head into the first turn. Actually, it's the eventual winner in those blue silks, the number 4, Micheline, who comes over on her a bit coming into the first turn. And you see Louis Saez is trying to get Highland Glory to settle, but she ends up getting a little bit rank as they move around this turn. She's trying to run up inside of that eventual winner, Micheline, and gets a little bit steadied there, has to get shuffled back towards the back of the pack here. You do want to notice as they move on to the backstretch, you see those fractions going up. They're not fast. The first quarter was 24-3. They go over 49 seconds to the half mile. And while this race was one where horses came from off the pace, I think the farther back you were was more difficult on you. When you see Highland Glory at this point is all the way towards the back of the pack. I believe she's second to last at this point. Just not an ideal situation. She was a deserving favorite in this race because she had run really well when she won her prior start, also against Stakes Company. That day she had gone wide around both turns and still got up to win. Now, Louis Saez on her this day is trying to do all the right things by saving ground on the inside, but watch the difference in trips between her and the number 4 horse in those blue silks ahead of her. Joe Bravo is going to get that horse, Micheline, off the inside and gets to make first run on the leaders, where Louis Saez is trying to save ground. He's trying to cut the corner here, but he's also picking up momentum, and it's hard to do that when your horse is gaining momentum down towards the inside. Right here, he's going to have to alter course again to go back towards the inside, again losing a bit of momentum, and she's going to ultimately finish second in this race, losing to the winner, Micheline, by a couple of lengths. But given the trip that she got, I don't think she really ran the second best race. I think she probably could have won this race if the trips were reversed, and given that she ran so well in her prior start and that she's bred to be a nice horse as a full sister to the accomplished Highland Sky, I think that there's still plenty of upside for this horse, and I think we'll see better from her in tougher stakes company for Barclay Tagg when she ultimately comes to New York for some of those big graded stakes races we'll see later in the year. So those are all 3 horses to watch this week. Hopefully we can make a score with one of these in the upcoming weeks and months, and stay tuned because I'll be back with some more horses to watch on next week's episode.